Okay, everyone, for your one of your final assignments, sort of a cumulative project, is you are going to submit a total of 5 webs for me. We have been doing them all throughout the semester, but I want to show you the progress of what it will look like by the end when you have done all 5 webs. And actually, it might even be 6. So you have already done an interest web, and the first assignment I gave you was doing something that you were interested in as a child, and then webbing it out if it compared with anything that you were interested in as an adult. For example, I gave you an example of bugs. I liked to collect bugs when I was little, and I'm still interested in learning about bugs as an adult, so I would web that. For this online course, I did it this way because we don't have children we can observe. Usually, I ask you to observe children, map out their interests, and then create a series of webs based on that. For this ECE 124 class, 128 online advanced curriculum, we do not have the ability to observe children in an authentic environment due to COVID. So hopefully this will suffice for now. So I'm giving you an example of the different webs that I would like, and you're going to submit them on one document by the end of the semester. Throughout the semester, I'm having you submit them to me in individual assignments. So the first thing you have already done is your childhood interest web. And again, you're crossing that web between what you liked to do as a child with what you liked to do as an adult. And again, I gave you the example of bugs and I webbed that out. For this example, I actually asked a former professor at DVC, Dea Brashers, who we all know and love. I asked her to collaborate with me and to map out some webs to show the students. So it wasn't just always you seeing me or seeing past examples. I thought it'd be great to get Dea's perspective. So Dea gives us here a really great example of some interests that she has observed in a child care setting. So right here, I will highlight interests of the children. And so she's noticing that they like to play pet store, or that they create new colors from primary colors, perhaps in the art area. They like to play rescue the pets in the water table. So already we're seeing a few themes of pets here. They like to build castles with moats and dragons and princesses in the sand. And again, this comes through keen observation skills like we discussed earlier in the semester. Down here, she's noticed children building tall block structures and then knocking them down like an earthquake. So maybe we see themes of earthquake here. Or sometimes building a building is just for the sake of building and watching it fall. There's a lot of things to be learned from testing physics with blocks. Then this one, listening and dancing to rock and roll music and using microphones to sing. And then over here, making ink blots and watching it spread out like tie-dye. So these were the things that Dea had observed. Okay, and this was her interest web. Now let me go up here and show you a very vague interest web, ones that we in the field would not consider good, okay? So she just has generic science, water play, sand play, reading books, music, block play, art, dramatic play, all very vague. When you go down here, do you see how specific it is? Listening and dancing to rock and roll music. So she's taking music and being very specific. Water play. Down here, she said that they play rescuing the pets in the water table. It's very specific and very concrete. So you've done this at this point in the semester, and then you are going to take that whatever activity it was that you chose as an interest. And for Dea, she chose listening and dancing to rock and roll music. She chose that as her interest web, okay? And so for her second web, she took the interest, and you guys have already made these interest webs, and now she's getting specific. She is considering what activities could stem from the rock and roll concert or activities that surround rock and roll. So the center here is activities for rock and roll concert, and then you can see all of the things that she thinks in her mind, based on the children's interests, would be fun to elaborate on a rock and roll theme. Now, this is emergent curriculum, but we are now moving into project work, which is what we are going to be talking about extensively with Reggio Emilia. So how can we prolong these activities and extend the learning and the thinking? So over here, she says practicing instruments, real instruments and pretend instruments, making some props like posters and microphones, disco balls, listening and dancing to various rock and roll artists, making costume pieces for the concert, headbands, vests, tie-dyes, bracelets. And this is not the teacher just bringing in these supplies. It's asking buy-in from the children, asking children to actually help make these things or build these activities together. Then we have the guest speakers. You can bring in musicians who play rock and roll. You can watch videos. You can build a stage out of blocks or other wooden materials. I would even say you could have parents come in and help you actually build a stage. And then we have a snack stand, pretend food, pretend drinks, signs, money. You could have a cash register in the dramatic play area. The kids could make and sell tickets. I would even extend this and say make real food and make real drinks. Invite the children and the families to participate in this. And then, of course, you could have another, a guest presenter that's a dancer. They can do different types of dance, hip hop, contemporary, watch rock and roll videos. So lots of great things that you can do for this activity web. Then we move down into the third web. So we've had the interest web, then we've had the activity web based on those interests, and now it's a very basic supplies web. Based on the last two things you just webbed, what supplies would you need? And there's no wrong or right answer here, but let your imagination go wild and list as many things as you think you would need. So you would need real musical instruments that children can handle. You would need old props that look like microphones or speakers. I would even circle these and go one further, please. I would say, where can you get them? I would start looking at thrift stores. I would go online to Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace and ask people to donate these items that they aren't using. You could collect videos and CDs of rock and roll artists. You would need glittery jewelry and jewels. For the supplies, guests who can play an instrument and sing and dance. You would also need paper and plastic plates, cups, glasses for snacks and the snack bar, aprons, and I could think of a bunch more supplies that you would need. All you'd have to do is go back up to the activities, look at each thing you webbed and say, gosh, what would I need for this? Would I need a stage? Would I need, for the tie-dye, you need t-shirts. Who's going to give you the t-shirts? The vests, where do you go to get the vests? Send out a newsletter to families and parents asking them to donate these things. So that's your web 3, your supplies web. And then let's see. We also have what is called a spin-off web, and this would technically be your fourth web. And often, like, one project or idea emerges from another, and it's usually based again from observation. So if you're observing this project out as it goes and evolves, what might you be seeing that could lead to other possible interests? And it may or may not work depending on the interest of the child, but you're leaving everything open. So the great thing about this spin-off is, what else could you do from a rock and roll concert? Well, you talked about a snack bar, so maybe now that evolves into a restaurant. You talked about, dressing up and acting things out. Maybe that's, spins off into going to plays or going to the theater or creating their own plays. Maybe the children really like the dance aspect, and up there in the supplies web we had a disco ball. So maybe they have a dance studio and the disco ball, and then it just turns into dance and music, and that's okay. You could have a music studio or a music store, or with all the dress up, it might spin off into a fashion boutique. Sometimes it can go in very predictable ways and sometimes not, but this exercise is really teaching you to be open and flexible and fluid. Think of the possibilities, and remember, you can always come back to your web and edit it, scrap it, get rid of it, add on to it, make it better. A web is an endless string of possibilities. Okay, and then this is a very important one. This is our fifth web that we will be doing as part of your final project, and it's called an outcome web. So in an outcome web, Usually you would have completed a project, or maybe the children are beginning to lose interest, and that's okay. This is your time to go back over the project and reflect and try to determine what the children learned from doing this project. This web is a parent pleaser. And as Dea likes to say, this is a parent pleaser. And I like to say this is the buy-in from the parents. Remember, in emergent curriculum and project work, sometimes it's hard to get buy-in or understanding from the parents. They might look at your interest web, your activity web, and they might think, all right, where is this teacher going with this? This is crazy. But when you map out the outcomes after a project, parents are so incredibly happy to see the learning that happened. So we take things off of this web, like children say, I liked dancing on the stage with my friends. Okay, well, what does that mean when they've been on the stage and they're dancing with their friends? Well, that's social emotional development. Okay, that's large and gross motor skills. Okay, because children are learning to work and collaborate. There's rhyming, there's tempo, there's timing, there's memorization, okay, which are cognitive skills. They can also build self-esteem from this. When they grab the microphone, that's fine motor or small motor development, hand-eye coordination, and this adds, all this is in the dramatic play. Then let's say it's the snack bar. They like selling the snacks. That's also social emotional development. There's creativity. It's them taking leadership. It's practicing dramatic skills, even math skills. If you had the snack bar and you had the cash register, as I mentioned before, in the cash register, that's adding, counting, subtracting, recognizing numbers. Then the building the stage part. Remember I said if you had a parent come in and build, so you have physical strength. There's a lot of math and physics in building, you guys. Cause and effect. What happens if, what happens when, before and after, things like that. Again, gross and fine motor or large and small motor development. Over here, children said, I liked hearing the guy come in and play a guitar. Okay, well, they're learning to sit and listen, to attend to something, another person, to listen for sounds. This is sensory development. They are learning to watch and become more astute listeners. There's aesthetic awareness. So there are so many positive learning outcomes in any project, but it's important that you web as you go because it's an evolving process. And in the end, you should be able to see the learning outcomes.